Welcome to the quarterly, as of now, Data Science Meetup. My name is Andrew Turner, and I'm currently in software development consulting. And I'm giving a presentation about a social issue known as data literacy in society. So first, I'd like to discuss data literacy and then really go into narrowing the definition because it's loose right now, for lack of better words. And then the societal importance and our obligation as the data literate folks. So the definition, the ability to read, work with, analyze, and argue with data is essentially how data literacy is defined and essentially works like regular literacy. However, it does involve certain technical skills to be able to analyze, visualize data. And so it's not simply a matter of you're data literate, you're data illiterate. It's really more on a spectrum of those skill sets that you have that you can use to analyze and communicate with data. So an expanded definition that I found basically breaks it down into 4 different categories or 4 different levels. And so we have readers, which are individuals with the ability to interpret data, communicators, which make sense of data to help with others' understanding, makers, who are responsible for integrating data into decision making, and these people are often your decision makers at companies, your project managers, or even VPs have to look at various types of data and make decisions based on it. And then we have data scientists, which are able to combine a strong technical background with their domain knowledge in that area. And so from these defined categories, we can see that they build on each other. If you're a communicator, you also have the ability of a reader. If you're a maker, you also have the ability of a communicator, and so on. And also, this definition is from a published paper, and so this figure was in there. Essentially, the complexity of the skills go up as you move up that pyramid. And so why then is data literacy important, and why should we bother to define it? Why should we care? It's obvious that the data needs in the world are growing. Companies are gathering more and more data every day, and things like big data have come along to account for that. And this has also started to affect the economies, which have become data-driven. And really, there's a lot of data out there about how do we turn it into actionable insights? How do we actually do something with it? That's a big part of the literacy, is that, okay, we have all this data, now what do we do with it a lot of times? And a big part of the societal importance here is to create data skepticism. And this is more on a public level. Often data is taken at face value, specifically graphs. And as we all know, we've played with data visualization. You can really make it say whatever you want if you're not following best practices or good principles. And so this would, more public data literacy would help individuals, detect this bad information faster, or just be aware that, hey, this graph doesn't look quite right, and maybe I shouldn't trust it right off just at face value. So I believe that as people who are data literate, we have somewhat of an obligation to society to start addressing this issue and not, siloing our skills. And essentially, this needs to be addressed in schools and colleges, but businesses have realized, with the economies being data-driven and them gathering more and more data every day, that if the schools don't address it, then they're going to have to, and they've slowly started adapting that. However, there's still what's called the data literacy divide. Essentially, you go to school, you get an education, and you get a job in technology after that. And if you don't know how to understand data at some level, your business or you are going to have to make up for that. And so I think the world's just becoming such a place that almost everybody needs to be data literate, at least on the first reader level. So what is currently being done about this? So the current solutions that I found when looking up and doing research for this talk, Talia Labs, which provides teaching literacy starting in grade school, really just kind of providing a foundation so you're not just hit with it out of nowhere someday. And then City Digits, which provides a platform for teaching students about their own city, so it's actually something really relatable, traffic rates, rainfall, things that they know about in their own city. And then Urban Data Schools, which is based out of the UK, essentially does the same thing as Talia Labs. They start focusing on addressing that data literacy at more of an early age. And I would really like to take this time if, so this was obviously kind of a rough overview of this topic. If anybody knows of any other solutions out there that are addressing this data literacy issue or any thoughts on it, I'd like to hear it.
I mean, we've all heard about fake news, and we know how graphs and images are manipulated.
Right.
So, because we're kind of in the area, so we know that, but like,
Right.
What is being done to combat it?
Yeah.
That isn't something other than like educating yourself thoroughly, like what we're doing here.
Right. And so I know I'm just one person, so I know maybe I missed another group out there that's trying to address this issue. So I was wondering if anybody just had any other information. And I will take some questions if there are any. This is my list of sources.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a
Yeah,
question?
I have a question. That's why I
okay,
want
you
to clap
started
first.
clapping.
I know. I was like excited. I was like, great job. Given the current state of data literacy in our society and the global society,
right.
Where do you see us going in the next 3 to 5 years? Do you see it being pushed down to lower and lower education levels, meaning like grade school, elementary school, or?
I would really love to say yes to that.
Yeah.
But realistically, that requires a change in the administration, change in laws, school board. Like, there's a lot of red tape to get through there. So I don't think it would happen that quickly.
Okay.
But meet you at 10 years. That's
Sure.
I mean, what is Talia Labs? Is that how you say it?
The Talia Labs. So they work directly with teachers, and Urban Data Schools kind of does the same thing. They're essentially accomplishing the same thing in 2 different places. And they will work with grade school teachers directly. And so I'm not sure how the funding aspect of that all works, but they'll essentially work with that to kind of, and then the class will do a project sort of thing to start teaching them about data literacy and how to understand data.
I know a lot of like even just the libraries in the area, they offer kids like intro Python programming classes, which I gateway drug, if you will.
I mean, for us, yes.
But I'm not quite sure off the top of my head.
So do you know if they're just teaching like programming concepts there, or if they're just teaching basic, like, I don't know, I haven't heard of this before at the...
So they like try to teach kids like basic programming ideas, but they try to do it with like, they program a robot because kids like seeing like an actionable result from the programs.
Okay.
So from what I can understand, like at the local libraries, they offer these classes to the kids to program like Lego robots using Python.
Really cool.
So not directly data analytics and stuff, but
Right.
definitely kind of like your gateway drug into programming.
Into
and stuff.
programming and data science. Well, that's really cool. That's awesome. Thank you gives me a lot of warm feeling. All right, if that's everything. Nope.
I was just going to comment on as far as the literacy. You know, a lot of places, it seems like they think they know it. You know, they've done some Excel stuff and they've moved up, and when they want to make something look, you know, up and down, they zoom in, you know, and change the axis. You get a lot of, you know, they believe they're already there, and they may not know the assumptions,
Right.
you know, that are for a certain regression, or, you know, and how to test for that, and know the fallacies
Yeah.
that are in there.
At least in my experience, it's a lot of, we collected all this data, can you solve this problem? And it's like, not with that data. So it would help kind of alleviate that and streamline our process.
Yeah, well, the one thing going off, I mean, might be getting off tangent, but like with the like data ethics, because obviously you could poll a certain number of people, but if you specify that like you're polling people, your data can be completely skewed. So how like do you think that can affect future data
Right.
literacy?
So data ethics is a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
P-value hacking.
Yeah. How much should you adjust that model? Yeah, I just don't have a good answer for you,
I mean,
really.
Just kind of curious on.
So what your concern is, or what you're saying is that
It's like, yeah, you could use like you could teach people how to use like the data and present an idea with data, but I mean, there's a lot of. I saw some examples out there that like if you just ignore some, you can ignore some people that you poll. And
right.
You can
And so what
your
concern is giving this skill or tool and people not using it ethically?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, like it's.
I mean, technology is neither good or evil. It's just.
How people.
It's just there, and it's just how people use it. So. Sorry, I know that's not a great answer, and you're not looking for gray areas, but.
They have like a whole, like in grad school just for stats, they had a whole like course that lasted a full year just going through ethics and the ethics of statistics. I don't know if they have that at BSU, but like the ethics of data science, if you will, but that's a whole year-long program devoted to exploring that. So it's
and other scientific graduate courses, not in statistics or computer science, will typically have the ethics of scientific experiments, which often include things like don't manipulate the data to be misleading.
Don't drop all the people out of the data that you want the results from.
Yeah. Don't cherry pick.
So, I think about Artemis Common Core, if there's anything in the math part, or would this end up being under the science part, if they were going to be in there at all?
That's a good question, and I think that comes back to his question of, hey, in 3 to 5 years, do you see this coming down to the lower grades? And basically, yeah, people are going to be like, well, where do we put it? Because I would argue it probably needs to be its own, needs to be either with math or its own course. It could very easily be in the science department though, so.
Good luck with that.
Yes, I know. Is that all for questions? All right, hand it off.